Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Lee and this is my library, so grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. We are back with the second day curls and a sweatshirt because we are in for another installment of some tea. Except this is coffee because I can't have tea. But I mean the metaphorical tea. We are going to be doing another installment of good books with bad reviews, or bad reviews of good books, whichever you want to call it. But this week, we are going to be talking about mystery books. I have a little bit of a soft spot for a good mystery book. I have been wanting to try and read more mysteries because it is a genre that I'm not fully experienced in, and with Book March Madness, we had a few really excellent thrillers and mysteries that made it to the Elite 8, which are part of my TBR for this month, which I've still yet to get to. So I'm really excited to read more of those. So I thought we would have some fun reviews of these books. So if you don't know how I put these together, I do some very intense Googling and come up with 10 of the most popular or most famous mystery titles or whatever genre. And then I go to my good old friend Amazon, because Amazon reviews is the starting blocks for anybody who wants to become a stand-up comic, just in case you were curious. They have some exceptional reviews, some real hilarious people who like to leave their thoughts and opinions on these books, and that is where I get them all from. So let's do this together, shall we? So the first book we have is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larson, I think is how you pronounce his name. I've never read this, obviously heard of it. I think it's a movie. I don't really know a whole lot about this book, but we'll see what the review is. The title of this review is called Tedious, Tedious, Tedious. I bought the trilogy of books because I knew two other people who had the books. It looked like a cool title, and the description on the back of the first book looked like I would like them. Cover by, okay? I can't even put into words how slow and tedious this book is. Here are some of my thoughts, and again, there's a list. Number 1, the name of this book was changed from Men Who Hate Women. Too bad they didn't leave the name, because that really does describe what happens in this book. But of course that wouldn't get as many buyers, now would it? Nice little trick to sell more books. The subtitle in the parentheses, Men Who Hate Women. Number 2, you must really commit to read the book from the very beginning, because you've got to get almost halfway through the book before the story really begins. I feel like that's a pretty common thing that happens. Number 3, it seems to me that it's likely that this first book is so horribly tedious because it's used as a setup for the two other books. I'm only guessing here because I just can't imagine that the author left this book like this for any other reason. Of course, he died, so it's possible that that's the reason why the book couldn't be reworked. Yeah, that's pretty final. Who knows why this book is so badly done? I will certainly never buy another set of books because it seems popular. I actually kind of respect that, because I myself have a little bit of a healthy fear of just because a book is popular doesn't mean you'll like it, so maybe you shouldn't buy it and wait until you know you're genuinely interested in reading it instead of buying it because it's popular. But I thought that was a really interesting thing about like the first book being a little more tedious to set up a series. I don't know if I like that style of writing. Normally I want like the first of the series to like be a punchy, attention-grabbing book that makes me want and crave more, rather than leaving so much out that I'm like, okay, well, now I obviously have to read the second one because there's holes. I want to be invested in the second one. I kind of felt that way about Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Audier. I had too many questions throughout the entirety of the book. I was like, all of this stuff should be explained in the first book, but it's obviously going to be explained in the sequel, which I have no interest in reading because the first book did not captivate me in any way. The next mystery we have is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which is actually, it was actually a title in Book March Madness, and it did fairly well for a while. It did not make it to the Elite 8, but it did some solid work amongst the other books. So let's see what this person read. The title of this review is Boring and Arduous Novel. I do not understand the fascination with this book. Boring. Lackluster. Yep, I said it. Apparently she is supposed to be the best-selling author of all time, but after reading And Then There Were None, I found it to be quite dull and arduous to read. It was quite painful to finish the book, but I managed to do it since I spent the money on it. I have never been one to enjoy English shows or movies, and I guess now books. Also, repeating the word queer practically 100 times through the book was just ridiculous. Use another phrase, for goodness sakes. I hope that person understands there's multiple definitions of that word. That's kind of it's obviously a person who doesn't appreciate the dry literature, or shows or movies or books that are part of the English culture. I know that there are a lot of people who don't gel with Agatha Christie's writing. It is sometimes tedious, but mostly because it's something you have to get used to. But I don't know. I think she's the queen of all mystery writing. Okay, the third book is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Hadden. I think this is also a play, if I'm remembering correctly. This is a little lengthier of a review, and I love the title of this. Felt betrayed. Nothing positive gained by reading this. It was my own lack of seeing this as a novel that had me almost believing it was really an autistic kid writing his own story for the first few pages. Then I thought an adult must have helped because something wasn't right in the writer's verbiage and the main character's actions pretty early on. There were inconsistencies all the way through, every sentence starting with "and then." For the last few chapters, it got very tedious. The reason I used betrayed in my description is because only after the book ended and I was seriously scratching my head did I reread the cover and see novel. Oh, okay, that means it's fake. None of this was even real. That was a relief. I can't blame the author for me not seeing that, only it completely reprocessed the book in my brain so I wasn't bewildered anymore. I was mad. I don't think this book can possibly do anything positive for the person with AS or society in general. I don't think this book can possibly do anything positive for the person with an autism spectrum disorder or society in general. In fact, I'd strongly recommend not reading it because it did not leave a positive impression on my AS brain, and I can't help to further the cause of normal. And it can't help to further the cause of normal people understanding autism. Okay. Isn't there enough pain? It did nothing except exploit an already fragile perception of autism through an author's made-up words that were jammed together to form an ugly story that isn't even true. I'm sorry I spent my money on this. I have heard very similar reviews about this book. There are a lot of people who love it, but I have heard from a lot of people that it does not provide an accurate description. I have never read it. I do have an autistic sibling. I have never read this book, so I can't really make a fair judgment on it myself, but I think it's interesting that someone with AS has read this and processed through it this way. Book number 4 is again one that was part of Book March Madness, and that is Rebecca by Daphne de Mojie. I kind of want to read this one. It has seen an uptick in popularity over the past year or so. This person titled their review, Confusing Read. I read the original many years ago and remembered liking it, so I thought I would see if the story would still hold its magic for me. Unfortunately, I have come to regret this decision. Manderley still has it. The atmosphere is still there. However, I could no longer stand Maxim, this cold, arrogant grump face who is not really all that smart, funny, or hardworking, not specifically good-hearted or even poetic. The man hasn't even the guts to go for a grown woman, but rather opts for a total child that follows him like a puppy. Which brings me to our heroine. We're getting a little bit of Lolita vibes here. Perhaps I identified with her as a shy teenager, though I now find it hard to believe I could ever have sympathized with her totally, such is the lack of character. I find her a total doormat. No spine in her life if her life depended on it. But most off-putting is her worshipping blind puppy love. At every point she is apologizing, begging, wagging her tail just to get one look from her master. I don't know if I like that we're referring to women as an actual dog. It doesn't matter to her that Maxim killed Rebecca basically just to preserve his reputation. The way the writer describes love in general is baffling. After the wedding, I kept waiting for the mention of an actual kiss, some indication of whether these two even shared a bedroom, but none ever came. As if that's not relevant, or part of describing chemistry between a man and a woman at all. Between the lines, one can read that sex has taken place. In parentheses, Beatrice asks about pregnancy, to which the main character replies that she doesn't think she is pregnant, but she's not completely sure. But other than that, the writer sticks to describing non-existing communication and quick, awkward smooches on top of the head, like from father to daughter. Okay, maybe the author used this technique to prolong the suspense, to keep the reader guessing about Maxim's true feelings for longer. For me, however, it just feels somewhat sick, this master-worshipper scenario, and certainly it is not romantic at all. I am 80% of the way through the book, and I'm not sure if I will finish this time. Just too cheesy, too shallow, and not the kind of love I would root for. Yep, I feel that. I also agree with most of those sentiments, except for the part where we referred to women as a dog. Not really a fan of that. The next book is a Gillian Flynn novel, Gone Girl. I have read this book and seen this movie. I was a little bit traumatized by this movie, not gonna lie. And this person's review is titled, "I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is one of the worst books I have ever read." I love what they then say, and that's saying a lot. I don't have anything to quantify that statement. First, the plot is so predictable. I knew the outcome almost from the beginning. Well, good for you. Second, there's not a single character other than the very minor character of the sister who is even remotely likable. It appeared Flynn was trying to make sure she constructed the characters to keep the reader guessing as to who did what, but as I explained above, the outcome was so obvious that it wasted effort. More importantly, though, she tried too hard, creating characters that were despicable caricatures at best. Ooh, I like that. How this got past even a half-rate editor is amazing. The writing style is poor at best, grammatical errors abound, etc. Yes, it's okay to bend and even break the rules for stylistic effect, but that's not the case here. Again, it seemed like the author was trying too hard to be something, and in the effort she merely made matters worse. This book should and could have been so much better. As it is, it doesn't even merit the 1 star I had to give it to publish this review. Find something better, it won't be hard to do. Yikes. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Love that. Creating characters that were despicable caricatures at best. Ooh, love that sibilance. Real nice. Number 6 is one of my all-time faves. Again, part of Book March Madness. It is The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sherlock Holmes. We love it. I have 2 very short reviews for here because I thought they were really amusing. Terrible, but okay. It was alright. It was slow at the beginning, okay, but towards the end, the story was interesting. Hot. It was alright. Terrible, but okay. Second one is Holmes is a jerk. Stupid premise, too wordy, unlikable characters. Can't believe junior high kids are forced to read this garbage. Very disappointing read. Which middle school is making kids read Sherlock Holmes? They're on the track to be Ivy League literature scholars. Number 7 is, again, a fairly popular classic. I probably should have put this one on mysteries for Book March Madness. See, this happens to me where I curated this list and then 50 other titles pop out at me. But this is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. And here we have the first instance of boring story. The movie was better. I can't believe this book is considered a classic. Half the story is ancillary characters who are reading the storyline, or reacting to storylines. You know who should play that character? The reader. By the time the main story got going, I was on the second to last chapter because everything up to then is build-up. By build-up, I mean not much is going on. If Les Miserables had a plethora of characters that provided perimeter stories until you came upon the main characters, this book is the antithesis of that. What a drab, boring story. The movie was better. Final grade, F. I love that comparison to Les Mis, though. If Les Mis had a plethora of characters that provided perimeter stories until you came upon the main characters, this book is the antithesis of that. Interesting. I kind of feel like Count of Monte Cristo is that same way. Forever, my favorite adaptation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde will always be the version I see in the Pagemaster movie. Incredible. Number 8 is a sort of cult classic, The Godfather by Mario Puzo. Again, I have never read this book. I have seen clips of the movie. I know there are several of them. And this one is pretty short and sweet. Garbage. This is possibly the worst book I have ever read. This was more than a little surprising since The Godfather is one of my favorite movies. The book is so bad, it is hard to understand why Coppola decided to make the movie, although I am glad he did. The hackneyed prose and added attention to the Johnny Fontaine character made for pure boredom. If you are contemplating reading this book, I suggest devoting your time to watching the movies instead. It takes about as much time to read this simplistic book as to watch the first 2 movies. Interesting. Love the vocab, hackneyed prose. That's not a word we use too often. Hackneyed. Okay, well, I guess I'll be watching the movie first. Number 9 is again one that was part of Book March Madness, and it's actually on my TBR for this year. That is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Again, I had 2 shorter reviews for this particular book. Horrible, don't read, pure evil. A horrible, horrible book about pure... A horrible, horrible book about pure evil. May the Lord's judgment be upon all of those behind this publication. Oh, what church mom wrote that? Love it. Oh, this is the worst book ever. I am about to go burn it in the fire pit. This book is absolutely horrible. I have never read such a disgusting, screwed up book in my entire life. I had nightmares for days, and I'm still having PTSD. Save yourself and others, and do not buy this book. Ever. Oh no. I can see it from where I'm sitting. I'm actually kind of interested now. Nightmares. I never really have read a book that has ever given me nightmares. I think it's mostly just because I sleep too deeply. This is something that I tell everybody, but like sleep for me is not like a pretty thing. Like, I don't know the definition of beauty sleep. If I'm gonna sleep, it is like full body, like shut down, reboot. I wake up looking like I've been through the zombie apocalypse. Like, sleep is a tool. It is not a pretty relaxing time. Oh man. So maybe that's why I don't have nightmares. I do dream pretty vividly, so I'm looking forward to the scary things that book brings my sleeping time. And the last one is a pretty large one. Also would be considered a classic. That is Crime and Punishment by Firo Dostoyevsky. I don't think this one was in Book March Madness. Why do I feel like we had another one? Maybe we didn't. I can't really remember for Book March Madness. Okay, and this title is just straightforward. Not for me. I must admit that I feel like a round peg in a square hole. Everyone raves on and on about this classic, but I just don't get it. Are they all philosophers, elitists, maybe? Or maybe masochists? Definitely. Surely not, but going through this difficult read is not only dull, mostly from the endless, meaningless monologues, but also somewhat painful. Many other 19th century authors have managed to entertain. Dickens, Conrad, Twain, Melville, many others, while this guy seems content to wallow in darkness, self-pity, bouts of unexplained anger, abject poverty, drunkenness, not to mention murder and thievery. Rodion, I don't know how you pronounce that, is a truly complex individual, by today's standards, a mentally ill one. Unfortunately, not an interesting one to me. I can't take it anymore. All the time I am reading this book, I am wanting to move on to a more modern story that I can relate to, with characters that don't depress me. Goodbye, ancient Russian classics. I tried to dance the classic dance, but you kept stepping on my toes. DNF. Oh, I love that. Goodbye, ancient Russian classics. I tried to dance the classic dance, but you kept stepping on my toes. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that one was a DNF. Honestly, I don't blame you. Dostoyevsky is tough. Russian literature is one of those things where, you almost feel like other people who say they enjoy it are a little bit elitist, and definitely a masochist. So that was me reacting to bad reviews of good books. If you have another genre that you want me to explore, I have a few in the works, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Put it down in the comments below, and I will be happy to add it to my reaction little playlist here. Also, if you've ever read any of these books, or have similar reviews or similar thoughts, please let me know. I would love to hear your bookish thoughts and opinions. Some of these I actually am still pretty interested in reading. I'm nervous about In Cold Blood. It is on my TBR this year. Later in the year, closer to Halloween. We love that for me. If you enjoyed this video or you enjoy my series of good books with bad reviews, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out, and let me know what you guys want to see. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed and comes back to visit, and the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It truly does mean the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers.